Now, with the initial shock of the discovery on Hope was starting to fade, another, deeper fear was starting to gnaw at the insides of Giallo. The fear that he felt strangely wasn't to do with the risks to his safety. This mission already had so many risks. The possibility of being killed by some alien settler colony didn't unduly worry him. The fear was much more psychological than that. One of the main reasons Giallo had been chosen for this mission was the ability to cope with isolation. Indeed, in fact, it's his preferred status. Now, Giallo wasn't just going to have to cope with the emotions and unpredictability of other humans, something which he found difficult at the best of times. Now he'd have to interact with an alien race. Those qualities which he thought would make him the perfect person to survive alone on a new world for maybe 40 years without seeing another intelligent being, are now the very things that make him one of the worst choices for this kind of mission. Still, there was nothing he could do about it now. He would have to make landfall on Hope, and have to make the creatures down there, and he would have to be the best representative of the human race that he could be. The change in plans for Hope would also now mean a radical reassessment of the items to be taken to the surface, and also some improvisation, since of all the contingencies, this was the one that hadn't been foreseen by him or the planners. Thinking of the planners led him to consider the initial report was to be sent back along with the detailed planetary data. Certainly take some careful wording. Ogia, of course, was set up to transmit as many messages as required back to Mars. The only problem with transmitting the messages was that although he travelled to Alpha Mensae inside a warp bubble, he had no method of creating one on this side, so any return message would take decades to reach home. Giallo was far from any help or advice that Mars could offer. He'd have to just try his best and hope that that was good enough. Giallo was certain, though, with some careful planning, he could reduce the risks that we'd need to take. We'd need to take more equipment relating to reconnaissance and surveillance, and less relating to survival. If, after a short time observing the aliens, he couldn't make what they used to call first contact successfully, then he'd be past caring about what equipment he had, and Mars would have to make other arrangements for its survival. Giallo began the procedures for placing Ogia in a high geostationary orbit around Hope. The high orbit was required to ensure that he could make continued use of the computers and surveillance systems and transmission equipment on board Ogia for as long as possible. He would have liked not to have used a geostationary orbit for Ogia, but with the alien presence on the surface of Hope, the time delayed waiting for the vessel to come back overhead could mean the difference between life and death. The main problem with the geostationary orbit was that Ogia was quite a large vessel, and that might well be observed from the planet's surface. And what they make of the vessel's appearance from the surface, he wouldn't be able to predict.